Very bad form. Very bad form to be eating potato chips at the start of a live stream. I apologize. Haven't eaten much today, so trying to scarf down some food before we start here. Hope everybody's having a lovely day. This is Status Coup in the United Corporations of America. Get your United Corporations of America shirt right now on StatusCoup.com/store. I want to see all of you at the beach or the commune this summer wearing your United Corporations of America shirt. I will make sure to promote this throughout the broadcast. And we have some ideas for other gear that we might add to the store. In addition to, hey, AI ordered your shirt. Awesome. In addition to StatusCoup.com/store, if you don't know, you could just go right under this video on YouTube, right under the description. There is a scroll. You could scroll for all Status Coup gear. We're talking coffee mugs, posters, iPhone covers, a lot of good yoga pants, pillows, pillow tops. Awesome, awesome, awesome. More gear without swear words. LOL. I'll try. So now, a lot to discuss. I also, I'm a man of my word. When I was in Cleveland for Nina Turner's election, the second one that she lost badly, I had a little disagreement via email with the viewer. So we placed a bet, and this viewer was correct. So I'm having this viewer on because I said if I lose, I'll have you on. So I'm going to have him on a little bit. So there's a lot to discuss. Smash that like button. It's a thumbs up button right under this video. The more people that press like, the more people that will see this. We're going to discuss, Biden sent a very harshly worded letter to the big oil executives, reprimanding them for price gouging, but actually not threatening them with anything. So we're going to discuss that and also do a little historical comparison because JFK also had some harsh words in his case for U.S. steel companies, but he did a little bit more than send a angry letter. So we'll talk about that. But I want to start with the donors, because after all, we live in the United Corporations of America, if you don't know. And smash the like button. Super chats are appreciated. I will definitely read them for sure. So the donors, you would think, Republicans polling shows they're going to take back the House. It's possible they're going to take back the Senate. You would think the corrupt people that own our government and the president would be flooding them with cash right now, trying to keep the Democrats in power, trying to keep the House in Democratic control, trying to keep the Senate in Democratic control. But in addition to his extremely poor polling numbers, it looks like even the DNC can't get donors to show up for this administration. Let's start here. Biden-Harris donor blues. Biden-Harris donor blues. If you have it, Colin, the article. Now, I'll wait for Colin. It's hot down in Texas, so we'll give Colin a break. It's the
I don't see it in the document.
Yeah, we'll start at this section. Biden-Harris donor blues. Puck News.
Oh, okay. I understand.
All right, let's go down to the section that reads donor blues. So Vice President Kamala Harris was slated to host the DNC's major money hauling event, the annual Women's Leadership Forum, on May 25th and 26th. A natural fit, given that she's the highest office holding woman in American history. And when the invites were sent out on May 5th, it was hyped as an incredible opportunity to mingle in person after 2 years of virtual events and meetings. But the event was rescheduled at the last minute for autumn, when the event is traditionally held, after the DNC couldn't sell enough tickets. Tickets for the event start at $250 per head for general admission, and the much coveted photo line slots start at $15,000 and top off at $50,000. Imagine that. People can't afford gas, food, rent, pretty much anything. But apparently $15,000 or $50,000, it ranges, to take a picture with the vice president there. The higher tier tickets in particular weren't moving quickly enough, and the organizers needed more time to build interest. Emphasizing that the event is typically held in the fall, even though invites were sent out for May 25th, the DNC spokesperson countered, the vice president is a huge draw. Just in April, she held a fundraising event for us that brought in over $1 million, but Wessel did not give a reason for this rescheduling. While the DNC continues to rake in small dollar dollars with digital ads, I've heard that there's been frustration within the DNC about the amount of access the White House is willing to give to the principals, Biden and Harris. The Obama administration, after all, okayed multiple events per month, which allowed them to charge as little as $5,000 for some grip and grin photos. Oh, boy. The official line from the White House has been to blame COVID and scheduling as the culprits, of course, but their inactivity with donors has made the fundraising more difficult. And it's a harder sell for the DNC to charge $15,000 for a picture with Harris. Quote, the honest reality is the White House hid behind COVID for a year, and they were perfectly legitimate in being cautious. It's a new world. Using that excuse is not that great. The White House needs to start giving the DNC more dates, and they're not. This is the latest microdrama in a fractious relationship between the Biden administration and its elite donor base, whose members have gotten increasingly vexed about no longer being able to enjoy the familiar perks of their generosity. Some have told me that the donor maintenance has dropped to the point where they genuinely wonder whether Biden is pondering re-election in 2 years. All right, you get the point. And smash that like button, by the way. We got 200 people watching. What's amazing about this, Colin, you probably don't have it. That's okay. But yesterday we played you a clip. Biden doing his usual, I'm lunch bucket Joe shtick, saying, damn it, Wall Street didn't build the middle class. Damn it, the middle class built, Wall Street didn't build the middle class. The workers built the middle class. Yet the DNC, for a picture with Biden and Harris, be ready to pony up between $15,000 and $50,000. So kind of mixed messaging when you're giving your little lunch bucket. I'm a union man guy, which he's not. He has sold out unions most of his career. Frankly, the AFL-CIO, who just held a rally with Biden yesterday, are a bunch of suckers, in my opinion, if they actually believe this man is for unions. He has taken money from union busters. He has pushed every trade deal that has decimated unions. But I digress. So what's interesting here, they make excuses. Oh, well, COVID, this and that. I mean, she's the vice president of the United States, right? These donors are not just donating for, photos. They're donating because they get special deals with the administration. They get subsidies. They get special tax breaks. They get special contracts from the administration. That's why donors donate to the Democrats and the Republicans, and donate to try and stop people like Bernie or progressive candidates. But what's interesting, when they're not, when you can't get enough people to RSVP for Harris, is that really because Harris isn't a draw? Is it because the donors are just not buying what you're selling at this point? And they see, we don't want to, they're money men and women. We don't want to lose our money because it's pretty much declared at this point. The Republicans are going to take back the House. My guess, maybe plus 30 to 40 seats. It's likely that Republicans could take back the Senate as well. So they're saying, well, Biden's lifeless. His polls are worse than Trump's was at this point. You got $5.10 is right now the average for gas. In fairness, it's not all his fault, but he certainly could be doing a lot more, which we'll get to in a little bit. And even the donors aren't even corrupt enough. Well, they are corrupt enough, but aren't even stupid enough to pour money into the Titanic. I mean, can you imagine if Republican fundraisers wouldn't show up to a fundraiser from Dick Cheney or Pence? The media would be all over it. But nothing from the media that essentially Kamala Harris, the vice president, can barely fill, whatever DNC yacht they're having this fundraiser on. pretty bad. If you got my Larry David Curb Your Enthusiasm impersonation. But it's not just that they're not drawing at fundraisers and they had to last minute reschedule. Because by the way, even though those donors at the high level weren't RSVPing, that's not just an insult to Harris. They are sending a message to Biden, because Biden and his donor maintenance program, which all these vulture Democrats and Republicans have people that only deal with donors. They know who's RSVPing and who's not. The donors are sending a message to Joe. Hey, Joe, we own you and we're not happy with your performance. That's the message they're sending. But in fairness to Joe, the donors won't actually let him do anything because they won't let politicians really do anything. That's what I'm always saying. We could focus on elections, but Biden's not really making the decisions. And Harris isn't necessarily making the decisions. Even Trump, to a certain degree, wasn't making the decisions. The donors set the line for what they can and cannot do. That's why Biden will not do anything, will not fight against Manchin and Sinema to end the filibuster, will not fight $15 for a $15 minimum wage or any of this shit, because his donors don't want it. Same thing with Obama. That's why when Obama had nearly a supermajority in the Senate and in Congress, he basically gave us a Republican health care plan because the donors wouldn't allow anything more, and the donors spoke through Joe Lieberman and whatever other fuckers blocked a more progressive health care plan. But I want to move on because it's not in all cases that the donors aren't showing up, but it's interesting which donors Biden is now leaning on. So this is also about the fundraising network column, the other link, dish on new Kamala fundraiser. Let me know when you have it. Now, for the first 18 months of their administration, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have mostly left big donors in the Bay Area out to dry. That's partly due to the lingering Zoomification of life in late COVID, and partly due to the administration having more important things to do than tending to big donors' egos, among other things. I don't really think they have much more important things to do than tending to big donor egos. But sure, a few select loyal donors have snuck through the Byzantine maze that is the Ambassador Olympics, meaning have become ambassadors. But the high dollar blues is impossible to ignore. That was a constant theme I heard from sources while running through Washington over the last few weeks. Democratic donors and bundlers, fairly or unfairly, feel ignored. Oh, poor donors, they feel ignored by their servants, Joe Biden. A case in point, neither Biden nor Harris have visited the Bay Area to glad hand with the party's biggest contributors. Well, no longer. Harris is making the administration's first fundraising trip to the Bay Area later this month, according to an invitation passed my way. By the way, this is Puck News. It's a great site. They focus a lot on tech and Hollywood and politics and kind of how they all merge. They got a lot of great information on who's donating and all that. It sucks because you have to pay money for it. I paid $100. Well, Status Coup paid $100 for an annual membership, but they got a lot of good information on who's donating. I like to follow where the money is coming from and to who. The vice president, a former San Francisco district attorney and the state's twice elected attorney general, is headlining an event hosted by philanthropist Shannon Hunt Scott and Microsoft CTO Kevin Scott on June 30th. The event is also helmed by Electing Women Bay Area, the Ascendant fundraising group that also hosted Harris during her first fundraiser via Zoom after being announced as vice president. We showed up, and then we need you to show up in a big way now, reads an invitation sent on Monday. Kamala is the first woman of color to hold the office of vice president. This continues to be a BFD, as the president would say. A big fucking deal. Identity politics, my friends. She will be on the ticket in 2024. I'm not sure about that. We want to help her demonstrate her own fundraising prowess as a leader of the party. Tickets for the event run from $1,000 to $50,000, which gets you a photo with the Veep. There are also plans for a high dollar event to be held during the trip out to San Francisco. Colin, could you put a poll in the the super chat? How much would people pay to take a photo with Kamala Harris? I'd like you could come up with the options. Let's give 3 options. I'm curious what the audience of actual working people would say. Tickets for the event run from 1,000 to 50,000, which gets you a photo with the vice president. There are also plans for a high dollar event to be held during the trip out to San Francisco, which kicks off July 4th weekend, I'm told, though the precise details are still TBD. Now, here it gets better. Biden, meanwhile, has also picked up the pace of his engagement with donors, flying to 2 events last week hosted by Hollywood mogul Haim Saban and others that brought in $5 million for the DNC. But Biden and his team, somewhat sensitive to the crass age-old politics of rewarding wealthy supporters, have done less of the typical suck-up than veterans of the presidential fundraising circuit expect. Bundlers consider Kamala in particular to be a weak draw. More broadly, Democrats involved in big money politics feel a sense of pessimism and even looming dread. As several fundraisers reminded me this week, it can be hard to raise money when you fear a loss is coming. So, Haim Saban. Haim Saban. Who is Haim Saban? Haim Saban is one of the wealthiest men in America. He is uber Zionist pro-Israel. He is one of the biggest donors to Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton over the years, to the point where some articles read beyond just the normal donor relationship. They've vacationed with each other. They've broke bread with each other, all that good stuff. Colin, if you have the tweet, this was in 2019. Haim Saban likes 22 of the 23 Democratic candidates for president. But I profoundly dislike Bernie Sanders, and you could write it. I don't give a hoot. He's a communist under the cover of being a socialist. 22 are great. 1 is a disaster zone. So that's who Biden just did a fundraiser with. But it gets better. It's not just Bernie derangement syndrome for Haim Saban. Haim Saban also attacks senators for urging humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. The hardline pro-Israel billionaire accused a group of 13 senators led by Bernie Sanders of getting their facts wrong. Television mogul and Democratic Party megadonor Haim Saban is privately reprimanding lawmakers who spoke out about the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. Saban emailed the senators, some at their personal address, to directly express his displeasure with a letter organized last month by Bernie Sanders. 12 Democrats and Sanders signed the May 11, 2018 letter calling for Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to act urgently in order to help relieve the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The letter, which came amid a deadly Israeli response to a protest movement in the Gaza Strip, said that the Trump administration should restore funding to a United Nations humanitarian effort and encourage Israel to ease restrictions on Palestinians living in Gaza. 3 days after the senators sent the letter, Israel fired on another round of protesters, leaving dozens dead and 100 more wounded. On Tuesday, The Intercept obtained a copy of an email Saban sent to 6 of the senators, along with a handful of staffers. Senators, for you to listen to Senator Sanders and accuse Israel of being the main culprit is outrageous, misinformed, offensive, and shows a lack of understanding of the region's basic fundamentals. Do your homework, unless you have chosen to blindly follow Senator Sanders' ill-advised, misinformed, simplistic, and ignorant lead. So, if you dare, yes, he did. He is behind the Power Rangers. I should have mentioned that. He is behind the famous Power Rangers, whatever that was, television show. But basically what Haim Saban was, if you dare speak out against essentially bombing the most dense place on earth, which is the Gaza Strip, and basically killing people in an open air prison, if you dare speak out on that, you are the depraved one, essentially. So that's who Biden just kind of glad-handed with for money. But there's another thing with Haim Saban, Colin. I forgot to put this in the doc, so I'm sending it to you now. Hold on. So not only is he fiercely against Palestinians, basically totally okay with what Israel is doing, bombing Gaza Strip, killing people. This is my favorite. Look at this image from this article. He is BFF with the Clintons, creating a corporate corrupt Power Ranger trifecta. You got to give it to Mother Jones. I don't like their reporting. They're not really progressive, but boy, is that a sight of Haim Saban and the Clintons. I'll read a little bit of this just so you know who Biden was just, hobnobbing with. On August 22nd, a convoy of blacked out Suburbans flanked by police escorts sped west along Sunset Boulevard and then headed north into the Hollywood Hills. The motorcade finally pulled up to the gated entrance of Beverly Park, an exclusive enclave that is home to an array of famous actors, rockers, and other Los Angeles A-listers. Hillary Clinton's destination that evening was the palatial compound of Univision chairman Haim Saban, a billionaire most famous for creating the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Saban's sprawling mansion was built in the style of a French country manor, and the meticulously tended grounds in which he took special pride were modeled on the gardens of Versailles. Over a late dinner, Clinton regaled Saban, his wife Cheryl, and 100 guests, including Disney CEO Bob Iger, DreamWorks animation founder Jeffrey Katzenberg, who gave the Young Turks $20 million, by the way, and basketball legend Magic Johnson, with war stories from the campaign trail. Quote, "Well, the latest one they have on me is that I'm dying," she said, referring to the elaborate conspiracy theories about her health ginned up by conservative media. That's a new one. Saban, who is solidly built with slick black, wavy black hair, is worth an estimated $3.5 billion, earning him the 453rd spot on Forbes. Wow, you gotta move up that list. The 72-year-old holds dual Israeli-American citizenship, and his office, which occupies the top floor of a 26-story tower in LA's Century City, is a testament to his divided loyalties, an Israeli flag and an American flag adorn his conference room next to photographs of Abraham Lincoln, David Ben-Gurion, Theodore Herzl, and John F. Kennedy. He also has a quote from former Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir: "We will only have peace with the Arabs when they love their children more than they hate us." There's a subject on which Saban does not hold back: his relationship with Bill and Hillary Clinton. No single political patron has done more for the Clintons over the span of their careers. In the past 20 years, he and his wife have donated $2.4 million to the Clintons, various campaigns, and at least $15 million to the Clinton Foundation, where Cheryl Saban serves as a board member. Haim prides himself on his top giver status. "If I'm not number one, I'm going to cut my balls off," he once remarked on the eve of a Hillary fundraiser. So I bring this up not to, gang up on Hillary and Bill, which I enjoy doing, but just to point out in one breath, donors won't even show up for the vice president of the United States. They got to reschedule a fundraiser because she's not a draw. In another breath, you got Biden going to, give photo ops and fluffy speeches in front of unions and, workers built the middle class, not Wall Street. And then what does he do? He goes and meets with filthy billionaires. And I bet you Wall Street donors were also at this fundraiser with Haim Saban, begging for money and basically bending the knee to Hillary and Bill's sugar daddy, Haim Saban. So between Kamala Harris not being a draw, Biden having to schlep to LA to hobnob with, the corrupt Power Ranger guru, it ain't pretty. Ain't pretty. Not pretty if for the Democrats. Now, let's be clear. The Republicans are doing similar cringe fundraisers because we live in the United Corporations of America. It's all theater. They're not representing you. They're bought off by these donors to do the donors' bidding. The CEOs, big oil, big pharma, real estate, Silicon Valley, military industrial complex, Wall Street, et cetera, et cetera. But I got news for you. The polling is one thing. If you can't get enough donors to show up for you, if you're the vice president, if the sitting president, Biden, has to go kiss the ring of Clinton donors, boy, bad, dark days at DNC headquarters, if you ask me. Moving on, let's smash that like button. Share this live stream. The more people that press the like button, the more people that will see this. I will read super chats at the end. Before we're going to have on a guest in a few minutes, but I want just quickly to show you Biden. He's really taking it now, trying to lower inflation. Biden sent an angry letter to big oil executives. From the New York Times, Biden slaps oil companies for profiteering at the pump. In a letter to 7 large energy firms, the president said excessive margins were worsening the pain for American customers. President Biden chastised some of the largest oil companies for profiteering off surging energy prices and, quote, worsening that pain for consumers as he increased the pressure on them to boost refining capacity and bring down costs at the pump. With the average price of gas in the U.S. topping $5 a gallon, Biden pointed the finger at the energy firms in a letter to 7 executives. He demanded they explain their decision to limit refining capacity and announced that his administration would hold an emergency meeting to discuss ways of stemming the crisis. Quote, at a time of war, refinery profit margins well above normal being passed directly on to American families are not acceptable, Biden said in a letter. There is no question that Putin is principally responsible for the intense financial pain. That's not true. We only get about 3 to 4% of our oil from Russia, but I digress. He said there's no question that Vladimir Putin is principally responsible for the intense financial pain the American people and their families are bearing. But amid a war that has raised gasoline prices more than $1.70 per gallon, historically high refinery profit margins are worsening that pain. The letter, which went to executives at BP, Chevron, ExxonMobil, Marathon, Phillips 66, Shell, and Valero, extends an effort by the president in recent weeks to pin at least some of the blame on firms raking in billions in profits. The president argued in the letter that the companies had failed to restore refining capacity and that they reduced earlier in the pandemic, leaving it at the lowest level in more than half a decade. At the same time, it said there is an unprecedented disconnect between the price of oil and the price of gas, noting that the last time the price of crude oil hit $120 a barrel in March, the price of gas at the pump was $4.25, but today gas prices are 75 cents higher. So why I bring up this letter, which I don't know, he's the president. If he wanted to send a message to the oil companies, can he not get the media to cover a press conference he would give on this? Can he not say this on camera? Can he not say a little more to these oil executives? Well, he can. You want to know how I know that? A lot of you might not have been alive, but JFK, before the CIA got to him, JFK in 1962 had to deal with the steel companies and their price fixing. Maybe some of you remember this, maybe some of you don't. U.S. Steel at this time in 1962 had jacked up prices on steel I believe it was $6 a ton. Let's see what President Kennedy had to say about this.
When we economic recovery and leave their home and thank Allah and were killed in the last 2 days.
Few gigantic corporations have decided to increase prices in ruthless disregard of their public responsibilities. Some time ago, I asked each American to consider what he would do for his country. And I asked the steel companies. In the last 24 hours, we had their answer.
Well, a little more direct than a letter, wouldn't you say? Little more direct than a letter. But he went beyond a press conference. Let me read this, how JFK forced steel price rollback. It was a corporate double cross 50 years ago this month that produced one of President John F. Kennedy's most famous lines. The Democrats, The Democrat, after just a year in office, was concerned about potentially rising inflation. His administration set an informal but well-publicized target of having wage increases and price hikes match productivity increases. Meanwhile, steelworkers bargaining over contract with the nation's steel companies were getting nowhere. The administration intervened. It didn't want a rerun of the 4-month steel strike of 1959 under President Eisenhower. Labor Secretary Arthur Goldberg, a longtime union counsel, mediated the talks. The two sides reached agreement on March 31st. The pact, with 10 of the nation's 11 steel companies, called for an increase in fringe benefits worth 10 cents an hour in 1962, but no wage hikes that year. Then AFL-CIO President George Meany said that in the pact, the union, quote, settled on a wage increase figure somewhat less than the steelworkers thought they would get. Kennedy praised the contract as, quote, obviously non-inflationary, and said both the United Steelworkers and the steel firm showed, quote, industrial statesmanship of the highest order. The agreement also implicitly said the companies would not raise prices, as that would be inflationary. Well, the companies then moonwalked and reneged. On April 10th, Roger Blau, CEO of U.S. Steel, the largest of the firms with 25% of the market, met Kennedy in the Oval Office and told him the company was immediately raising prices by $6 a ton and that other steel companies would follow. 6 did. The 3.5% hike enraged the president. What he said in public was biting, but he was even more caustic in private. In an April 11th, 1962 press conference, Kennedy called the price hikes a wholly unjustified and irresponsible defiance of the public interest. He criticized, quote, a tiny handful of steel executives whose pursuit of power and profit exceed their sense of public responsibility. The execs had utter contempt for the U.S., Kennedy said. In private, he added, my father always told me that all businessmen were sons of bitches, but I never believed it until now. Well, your father was also a son of a bitch, but that's neither here nor there. The line quickly became public. Historian Arthur Schlesinger, then a White House staffer, wrote in his later book, 1,000 Days, that Kennedy, to his staff, called the steel firm leaders bastards. Meany said Kennedy used that epithet for them in a phone call, too. The contract with United Steelworkers stood, and the union wisely stayed silent. Meanwhile, two big firms, Inland and Kaiser, refused to follow U.S. Steel's lead. The Kennedy Defense Department, run by former auto executive Robert McNamara, let it be known it planned to shift a submarine construction contract to a smaller steel firm that also refused to raise prices. The other firms that followed U.S. Steel, led by Bethlehem, retreated. By April 13th, even Blow of U.S. Steel had caved. The GOP screamed, the firms stewed. So, shocker, the president, using his contracts with the military-industrial complex, played a little hardball. Said, yeah, we're not giving you this submarine contract. We're going to move it over to these fine folks who aren't rising steel prices and basically price fixing the steel industry. I don't know. Does Biden have any, bows in the quiver? Do we not give ExxonMobil and all of these fossil fuckers another shirt, by the way, you could get in the Status Coup store? Those fossil fuckers, go get that shirt, lickety split. Can he not say, if you're going to be price gouging the American people during a tough time and you're going to be raising prices $1 to $2 higher than they need to be or they should be, maybe we don't need to give you those subsidies that basically over a decade, you're talking hundreds of billions of dollars to these fuckers who have record profits. Yeah, actually, I think we're going to pull back on those subsidies. Why won't he do that? Just think, why won't he do that? Well, it's all interconnected. For example, let's look at Standing Rock when I was covering that. It's not just the direct money that goes to the oil companies, or the direct money that the oil companies donate to politicians. Because in terms of politicians, believe it or not, the oil companies donate a lot more directly to the Republicans than they do the Democrats. Some Democrats, Manchin, others like him, get directly from oil companies. Mostly it's Republicans. It's Wall Street. Wall Street is heavily invested. And we know Wall Street is the preferred boss of the Democratic Party. They're heavily invested in all these fossil fuckers. The Dakota Access Pipeline, it was a who's who. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, all invested. Keystone, if that was ever to be constructed, Wall Street was invested in. Wall Street has been heavily invested in the fracking all over this country. Wall Street's also very invested in uranium mining. So Biden is only going to send a gingerly worded letter slapping these CEOs on the wrist, but he's not actually going to play hardball. He ain't going to revoke subsidies, not revoking tax breaks. He's not going to do anything that could actually make them cave, because these donors, the big oil donors, are in league with his Wall Street donors, and he doesn't want to piss any of them off. That's why we live in the United Corporations of America. That's why I'm not saying totally give up on electoral politics, but that's why I've been saying for a while, we're going to have to think bigger. We're going to have to get outside of the electoral system, focus a lot more outside. We're going to have to do more than just, boots on the ground protests, because they'll allow you to circle around the same blocks over and over again protesting. I've covered this, similar protests for 7 years. It's the same blocks in New York, DC, and elsewhere. It's the same chants. It's the same song. But if you actually start adding an economic component to it, economic protests, whether it's boycotts, whether it's choosing, to boycott for several weeks, try to go for months, economic actions against big banking, economic actions against community banks that are not doing right in their communities, grocery stores that are not doing right in their communities, fast food restaurants, Amazon, Walmart. I mean, we could go on and on. Now, this is obviously a lot easier said than done. People are working multiple jobs, raising kids, $5 a gallon gas, food prices out of control, electricity out of control. It's hard to then say, hey, let's go on a strike. Economically, a lot of people say, I can't afford to do that, or I'm going to be out on the streets. That's why it's going to take, in communities, people starting to come together and organize, not just for a one-day Medicare for All march, but actual economic actions with a pot of mutual aid. Mutual aid is very important to that. But I just think it's funny because the media is covering this like, oh, Biden's taking it to the fossil fuckers. Biden is doing nothing. He's not taking it to them. He's writing a little gingerly worded letter, making it seem like he's doing something, when he could be ranting at a press conference. He could be rallying outside of some of these oil refineries. And you know what? The people would be behind him. I think even progressives would be behind him if he did that. He could be saying, you know what? We gave you X amount this year in subsidies. I don't think you need it anymore. We're going to pull back. Actually, we're going to start looking into how much money, how much taxes you pay or don't pay. He ain't going to do it, and we know why. So it's not just a shirt, folks, which you should buy at statuscoup.com/store. It's not just for optics. This is the United Corporations of America. Jordan tried to herd cats. What are you talking about, herd cats? Anyway, without further ado, I am a man of my word, and I've lost a bet. Joining me now, Tim Russo. You are in Cleveland?
Near Cleveland, yeah.
Okay.
Just on west side suburbs.
Awesome. So,
don't you wish you would have come over for the beer? You would have been right about this race from the get-go.
You're right. But what you didn't know, Tim, I actually have been limping around badly for the last few weeks because I tore my ACL. So while I was on the road, I was basically, other than reporting, icing my knee.
You were here with the bad knee?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I will come back for a beer.
Beer would have done you some good. I'll tell
I
you
do.
that.
I do like Cleveland. So let me give the backstory. I was in Cleveland for the second election. Anita Turner, I'm not from Cleveland, but I just looked at the numbers. She only lost by 4,000 votes the first time. I looked at the amount of money that was being shoveled in against her. I mean, we're talking millions in the last round. And I said, I think it's going to be close. You emailed me saying I'm crazy. You said Brown is going to win by over 30 points. I basically said you're crazy, and you were correct, and I was wrong. So first off, tell me why you were so sure of that, and also tell me what lessons do you think the progressive movement needs to learn off of not just her second loss, but Nina Turner's first loss.
Well, the first loss was her shot. I mean, the first loss, she had a chance. She started with a lead of 35 points, right?
Yeah.
Now, did you believe that 35 points lead?
I figured it was probably closer to 15 or 20, and probably their polling was not a huge number. But I thought she was up by probably 15 to 20 points the first time.
Yeah, and me and the guy who watches your show, who told me about that you were in town, Jonathan, we did a little podcast on this for an outlet called Midwestern Marks, believe it or not. And we talked about it. We're like, do you believe she's up 35 points? I'm like, well, and we kind of talked about it. I'm like, all right, she's up 20 at least. She's up 20. Let's say she's up 20. She blows the 20-point lead, burns $3.5 million on fire, and loses because she didn't have an early vote program. You hear that story?
Yeah.
That the margin of victory was literally the margin of the early vote ballots that Nina Turner's campaign did not chase, did not have a program, nothing. That's the story we heard. So she had her shot. And then
she also didn't have a real good ground game either. And that's important when, I mean, what is it? The average congressional race there is like 19% turnout.
Yeah. Anyway, the second one, she was done. I mean, she was running against an incumbent. It just basically comes down to Chantel Brown was an incumbent by then, even in the redrawn district. In the redrawn district, everybody was pointing to Lakewood. They forgot that they took out Akron from the old district, which Nina won. Then they forget they throw in every other Democrat in the city of Cleveland. And she has a history with those Democrats. She's a very establishment politician. People forget that. They basically got tired of her act, locally. And when she lost that first one, she got a fair hearing, and this notion that all this money outspent her. Well, if it outspent her by a nickel or 100,000 or $1 million, she still spent $3.5 million, and you don't lose if you have $3.5 million.
I have a different view, which a lot of progressives do not like, because they think this does not match their this does not match what they bleed. But this is what I see, not just in Cleveland, but other places. The truth is, Cleveland is a place that likes the Democratic Party. Cleveland is a place that maybe not as much now, but did like Biden. Cleveland is a place that voted for Hillary Clinton by 35 points. I think they voted for Biden by about that margin. It tends to be a pretty vote blue no matter who place. And all I saw in that first election were billboards around the city with Nina Turner's bowl of shit comment, ads on TV with her bowl of shit comment. And by the numbers, that got the white folk in the suburbs out in large numbers, and maybe deflated other voters from coming out. I don't know what you think, but to me, not progressives were ranting at me. No, she lost because she didn't run on burning down the Democratic Party and criticizing Biden. I actually think she lost that first time because she did, in large part because she made those comments.
Well, she's also a creature of the establishment, and she was going to join the establishment if she became a congressperson.
Why do you say that?
Because she came up, her first job was with Mayor Mike White, who was mayor of Cleveland in the 80s, and before George, who was the next mayor? Jane Campbell, I think. She came up all the way. She was on the statewide ballot, and then she flips on this local government issue that everybody locally holds her to the ground for. To this day, nobody covered that. What happened was the national media just stopped looking at Nina Turner as a human being and started looking at her as a narrative, a piece of a narrative. She was no longer Nina from Cleveland. She was Nina with Bernie. Right. And that only lasts for so long. And now we see. And now when she ran this time, I'm like, Jonathan and I, that's the same guy who introduced me to your show, talked about it again later. And we both, for the second one, we were just waiting to see how big the margin was. And I told him, I bet you that she was going to lose by 30. You thought I was crazy.
Now, let me ask you broader than Nina, though. I mean, it's not unique to Cleveland. I've seen it in Detroit, Flint, a lot of the industrial cities. It seems that in these really, really poor areas, I mean, voter turnout is abysmal.
Oh, it has been a steadily worthless, vain effort to try and get city of Cleveland voters, not just African Americans, but any city of Cleveland voter to come out. And that's a function of the, like you talk about, the big picture. That's a function of the collapse of a capitalistic system and a government that doesn't work anymore, and everybody knows it. So no one talks about these non-voters who cannot be motivated to walk into a polling place and vote for anyone on that ticket because they've been lied to their entire lives by them. And for the most part, the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party relies on that, trying to make a turnout program in that group, and they just don't come out. And it's largely because of economic decline for 50 years and the rest of it. I mean, where did you go when you were in town when they took you around?
I was driving around downtown, and then I was driving around. I went to Cleveland Heights. I went to Shaker Heights. I went to Lakewood. I went to the east side of Cleveland, which was definitely run down. So those are the parts.
Yeah, I mean, she's finished. She had her shot. That was her shot. If you're up 20 points and you got $1 million in your pocket, and then you're about to get another 2.5 million, you better win. That was a face plant. And I thought she should have run as an independent. I sort of tend to agree with you. This electoral politics stuff is futile unless you challenge it from the outside. And one way to challenge it from the outside is to run as an independent, which she could have done.
But how would she have competed in a vote blue, no matter who, running as an independent?
Well, the issue there is you're building a separate electorate that seizes power from this machine that you call the United Corporations of America. So we're going to build a completely different, and she could have done it. She would have had the money. She had plenty of access to national networks, media. She could have done it instead of spending all that money on the television. See, the television ads, she's just giving money back to the machine. She's taking your money as a donor and giving it to Gannett and Advanced Communications, who owns the Cleveland Plain Dealer. She could have taken that money and turned it into an independent campaign and maybe got to 35% in the fall, which would have been quite revolutionary. But, people take the revolutionary rhetoric she says seriously. She does not take it seriously.
Right, but you're saying that Brown won because she was an incumbent. So
the second time when she was an incumbent, and when your Clinton warm up, your warm up with Hillary and Bill and Had Saeem and all of these gargoyles, Ohio during the Clinton years was the #1 target state of the Clintons. No state other than New Hampshire in the entire country got more attention from the Democratic Party during the Clinton years than Ohio. And that establishment focused on Cuyahoga County every election because that's where all the Democrats are, and they got to get out. And if they don't get out, we're going to lose. And the Cuyahoga County centric approach to statewide politics here in Ohio is starting to fall apart, but it never fell apart in Cuyahoga County. And those establishment machines are still there, and Nina is definitely still a part of it.
Well, I think there's another element too that didn't get a lot of attention. I'd love your thoughts. Marcia Fudge, who was the longtime congresswoman there, she became housing and urban development secretary. She was basically behind closed doors, kind of shadow propping up Shontel Brown. Her network, her machine was propping up Shontel Brown.
And County Democratic Party.
Right. I think that helped for sure.
It did. And once you're an incumbent, that machine is not split anymore. See, Nina's advantage was in the primary was that she could split that party a little bit. She could peel off a few ward leaders here. She had a lot of pastors, a lot of mayors. She had Mayor Jackson. She had lots of elected officials. So she was able to split the party. But once they got Shontel and that was settled, this seat has a history. It goes all the way back to Lou Stokes, where and Lou Stokes' successors largely have been appointed first. So that's when people point to these Congress people from the east side of Cleveland who happen to be African American and so look at them and say, "Oh, this is such a wonderful." It's a very woke-ish thing. Every successor he's had has first been appointed before they. It's incredible. It's like some kind of royalty. And that's Marcia Fudge treating Chantel that way. You know, she did not get to be a congresswoman because she won that primary. She got to be the congresswoman because Marcia Fudge picked her own successor on purpose, and that's how that works in that part of the county, and especially the city of Cleveland. So yeah,
so play it out though, for argument's sake. Nina Turner in August skips the Democratic primary and runs as an independent. What is your message as an independent candidate in a place like Cleveland that is a Democratic Party stronghold? Is
that's
it
Bernie message? Because that Bernie message, you and I both know that during the Bernie campaign, there was this overlap between the Bernie and the Trump voter.
Yeah.
But during the 2015 primary, especially here in Ohio, we saw it in polling. There were people, especially downstate Appalachia, down in along the Ohio River, who were struggling between Bernie on one primary and Trump on the other primary. And that was a big chunk of people. And that's enough to win anything. And she would have to go back to that Bernie message that motivated across all cultural divides, all racial divides, the working class. And she would have gotten a different electorate to come out. It's a bet, right? It is a bet. It's no easy thing to manufacture.
I don't really think, but I don't think Bernie beat Biden or Hillary in Cleveland in either primary.
No, that's because that's where, like, again, the Clintons have spent hundreds of millions of dollars on the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party, Ohio Democratic Party establishment.
Right. That's my point, though. You're talking about a different electorate, but I don't know if there's a big burner electorate in Cleveland.
Well, you know, and what was the turnout in that first race? 17%?
Yeah, 17.
Okay.
I mean, it was in the first week of August, so it's kind of like most people didn't even know there was an election.
Let's say you don't think, and how many votes did it take to win that race? What was it? She won by 25,000.
No, she got I think it was 4,200. Let me look.
4,200 was the margin.
August 2021.
Anyway, you can build that number. You can get that many voters out of thin air. If you just stop playing their game, if you go outside the box, you start knocking on the doors where nobody votes. The non-likely voters, the non-voters, and register them.
Chantel got 37,666, and Nina Turner got 33,000. So
now, don't you think a movement that makes all the changes that you and your audience care about is that big? 37,000 in a congressional district? Yeah, I think it should be. If that kind of movement is going to change the world, then it should have at least 37,000 people that you can motivate to go to the polls. Well, Nina. That's what Nina should have set as the goal. She should have said, I'm going to find 37,000 new people and bring them in. And she had the money to do it.
Well, here's the other issue, though. In places like Cleveland, and there's a lot of places like this, the party primary is the election. Whoever wins the party primary goes on to thump the Republican in the November election or the Democrat. Right. So if Brown ran, she wasn't running unopposed. There was other candidates. But if she won, and Nina didn't run in the primary, then you're up against Brown, who's the Democrat nominee, a Republican, and by voter patterns in Cleveland, they vote for the Democrat.
Sure. So she doesn't win.
Right.
So what? I mean, we're trying to start a revolution here, aren't we? I mean, when she creates an organization called Our Revolution, sits at the top of it for years.
Well, she didn't
runs into a Democratic primary the first chance she gets. The first chance she got, she was in that Democratic primary. So that's not revolutionary. Now, if she loses a congressional race by bringing out 10,000 new people, and that's only 20% of the vote, or maybe it's only 15% of the vote, that's a victory. That's a real victory. And you got yourself an organization now. You got an army, but she wouldn't do that. And that was the question. Remember when they were saying to Bernie, run as an independent, they were saying this to Bernie.
Well,
in 2015 and 2016,
I think Bernie actually had a chance if he would have ran as an independent after he lost the Democratic nomination. Trump was historically unpopular. Hillary was historically unpopular. But where I don't agree with you is forget that she ran as a Democrat. If you're only losing by 4,000 votes in the first election, and you already pointed out, it was winnable. she made mistakes in that election.
It was winnable.
To me, the better, and by the way, you only lost by 4,000 votes, even though it was plastered all over Cleveland, the president's a bowl of shit, yada, yada. But to me, you have to figure out how to not make those, not just her, but any progressive candidate needs to know not to make those certain mistakes.
Yeah.
By early voting, you need a ground game. You can't spend most of your money early in the campaign, which she did. So to me, it was more winnable in Cleveland, if you care about winning, as a Democrat than as an independent. But your argument, I get your argument. Well, eventually we'll win, but you have to start somewhere.
And if she doesn't, if she wins, guess what she becomes? AOC voting herself a $2.1 billion private police force for the Capitol and $40 billion of arms to the Ukrainian Nazis.
See, there I don't agree with you. And this isn't a Nina Turner defense, but this is how I think. I think that people are too quickly projecting their disappointment with the squad onto everybody else. When you're right that Nina Turner does have a pattern in Cleveland, kind of working along the aisles, bipartisanship, whatever. But at least in her most recent years, she did do things that, to me, I don't think she was as predictable that she would go in there and just fold like a cheap tent, like AOC. I think she would vote for certain things that probably you or I wouldn't agree with.
Well, yeah, that's easy when it's not a vote, when it's just, talking on television. But if you have a vote to cast, I guarantee you she would have voted. Nina would have voted for the $2 billion police force, and her husband's a cop, and she would have voted for the $40 billion to Ukraine to start World War III. I don't see a difference. I mean, the non-voter, this is coming from I don't actually vote anymore. When you look at these two parties, they really are exactly the same thing. And when you win through that machine, you become the machine on purpose, because that's how you're going to survive. It all gets very hopeless, and that's when I turn over and listen to Chapo Trap House and Matt Christman's Kush vlogs about the end of the world and whatnot, But you should have come over for the drink, because then you would have been right instead of me being right.
I'll come back. I actually might be doing a road trip soon, covering inflation.
You should come to Ohio and cover this Senate race, and I'll walk you around the state. Let's
talk about this Senate race. I don't know if the audience cares, but Tim Ryan, who I don't know what you think, is about as a real union guy as Joe Biden is. As far as I know, he's not even well liked in Youngstown, where he represents. But Tim Ryan, who some union people in Lordstown had quite a lot to say to me about him. He's running against JD.
What did
Vance.
they say? I want to hear that.
They think he's more bark than bite. Let's put it that way. I could tell you over beer though.
Well, let's pretend we have a beer. Let's hear it. Come on.
But Tim Ryan,
break some news here in this race. This race is a dud.
He's a corporatist. That's what they said. He's a corporatist, pretending to be a union guy. And he's not for Medicare for all or any of that shit. Yeah. I mean, granted, I spoke with some folks that were probably more progressive, but he's running against JD Vance, this fake, hillbilly who's bankrolled by Peter Thiel and has I think he's got multiple mansions. But I could be wrong. I think Vance is going to win.
Well, then we don't have a bet, because I think Vance is going to win. What you have to remember about this midterm, you have to go back to the last midterm that was a tsunami, and that was 1994, the contract with America that gave us Newt Gingrich and John Kasich. And
that wasn't the last one. 2010 was a tsunami as well.
No, it was not.
They got 80 seats.
They didn't get the state of Ohio.
Okay, but it was still a tsunami. I mean, the Republicans took 80 seats, but go ahead.
The last one that really, really blew the doors off was 94. And if we disagree on that, fine, we can argue about that.
I was only 8. Go ahead.
Well, I was working that campaign for Joel Hyatt for U.S. Senate, who was running for his father-in-law's seat, Howard Metzenbaum. Howard Metzenbaum was retiring. Joel Hyatt was running for his father-in-law's seat. And that was the Clinton midterm 94, and it was a wipeout, top to bottom. And the top of the ticket was a guy by the name of Rob Birch for the Democrats, who ran against George Voinovich. the incumbent. The only thing Tim Ryan has going for him right now is everybody hates Mike DeWine at the top of this ticket, including his own party. Everybody hates him.
Mm-hmm.
And they've hated him since he ran for Senate in 94 when I was on that Hyatt race. That's who beat Joel Hyatt, was Mike DeWine. But at the top of this ticket, everybody hates DeWine, but he is an incumbent. And I think this midterm wind is like a tsunami right now, a hurricane. I don't think any Democrat statewide in Ohio is going to win. I think Tim might be the closest. He might get to within 10. Should we bet on the margin here? Maybe that's the bet.
Sure.
What do you think the margin's going to be?
I think Vance will win by 7.
Okay, so in 94, it was a dead heat too between Joel Hyatt and Mike DeWine, and Joel Hyatt lost by 13 points. So I'm saying, I'm feeling a little frisky here. I'm going to say 20. Now,
yeah, I don't think it'll be that bad. But
well, you thought that the last time we had
Trump won by what, 8 or 9 points this time in Ohio?
Yeah, I think it was 8 points last time. It was 6 points the first time. It was 8 points this time. This is a very Trumpy state. It is not a blue state anymore. And the like, there's a guy down the street from me. This is in Western Cuyahoga County near the Ford plant by the airport, Middleburg Heights. There's a guy down the street from me. The day after the election, he had 4 Trump 2024 signs up. This is before anybody impeached anybody. This is before any insurrection shit went down. This state is very Trumpy. Now he's got "Let's Go Brandon" flags out front over there. His front yard looks like a flag show. And that's how Trumpy the place is. And you put on top of that the gas prices. So you guys are on the East Coast. You don't deal with these East Coast media types who dominate.
It's 5:05 where I am.
You don't drive a car very far, do you?
I've taken a lot of reporting trips. Thank you very much.
Well, good for you. You know what the price of gas is. But a lot of these guys, not only do they take the cab, take the subway, take the bus, take the Acela Corridor, take the train. Most of these guys got drivers,
right,
taking them from the studio to their home and back. They don't know about the gas. That's the only thing people are talking about right now is inflation and the gas prices.
Right.
The other thing I think Vance could make something out of that's in the underground right now is the anti-war thing. Is Tim Ryan's out there standing with Ukraine, and I think this anti-war left-right convergence is very interesting. And you could see if Vance was smart, he would try something with that. He made some noise with it at a rally in the primary right after Trump endorsed him with Donald Trump Jr. Jr. comes in, does a rally for J.D. Vance. Not a very big rally. This is right after he was endorsed. Is it after or before? That's very important, actually, the timing here. But they both get up and they both go, oh, so Big Pharma started. They got you with the vax with Big Pharma, and now we're on to big war with another war. Donald Trump Jr. says this with J.D. Vance next to him, and J.D. Vance echoes the same thing at this event.
Well, the problem is they're full of shit.
They're Republicans, and they're going to start a war just as easily as the Democrats are starting.
Right, they love war. J.D. Vance loves war. They're just against this one. Right.
But if he's looking to win an election here and it's getting close, I don't think it's going to be close. What happens with Democratic Party Senate candidates is. And statewide Kansas, they have this big fight for the primary because that's all they care about. Like you said, the primary is the ball game for these Democrats. They don't care who wins the general election. They just want to win the primary. They get to the primary. Next thing you know, their money dries up, just like you described with Biden and Harris. The money is going to dry. Tim Ryan's not a fundraiser. I know Tim personally. He is not a fundraiser, not very good at it. He doesn't like asking people for money. He's relying entirely on an online network which he didn't build, which is not really his. Do you remember how he became famous? Do you remember the big speech he gave?
No.
So the only reason anybody ever heard of Tim Ryan was the speech he gave on the floor of the House in 2004, October of 2004, about an attempt to reinstate the draft in order to show to the American people the cost of the Iraq war.
Right.
And Tim's big stem winder on the House floor that night is one of the very first viral videos of the viral video era. You know, in 2004, the blogosphere is just getting started. You know, I'm sure it blew up on Daily Kaz first and made its way around that ecosystem. And that's what made everybody love Tim Ryan, was because he was this big anti-war voice. Well, guess what? He's standing with Ukraine and he's throwing billions upon billions upon billions of dollars into a black hole for a war that happens to might be nuclear.
Well, by the way, they just
like the guy is completely flipped on his core principle of being pro-peace and anti-war. And if JD Vance can work that thing into something, he should. That would build quite a coalition, because I think there's an anti-war coalition on both the left and the right that is fed up with this completely. They're like, they don't care that you stand with Ukraine. In fact, if you stand with Ukraine, I'm not listening to you. I think there's a lot of people out there like that. And you might be tapping into it a little bit yourself.
Biden just gave another $1 billion today. So, you know,
right. Like
8 years later, the pipes have not been replaced in Flint. They don't have clean water. They don't have Medicare for all.
He thinks the guy filling his gas tank to go to work is too stupid to understand that it's the sanctions for this stupid war where you're running around primping your feathers in front of everybody to say how tough you are, Joe Biden, that is causing this gas price. This gas price is a direct result of the sanctions, not the invasion. The invasion had nothing to do with the supply of gas or
well, yes, and
gas
no.
or anything.
There's a lot of price. It's a lot of price gouging too, having nothing to do with.
On top of, yeah, I mean, what your Kennedy thing was great. I loved seeing that, because you know what Kennedy could have done right there back in the day. He could have seized an oil company if he wanted to.
But that's what I'm saying.
Who's out there talking about seizing the means of production? Nobody.
But wouldn't it be a message if what you're saying is true, that inflation is the name of the game and that's all people care about, which I agree? Wouldn't somebody like Tim Ryan, or dare I say Biden, coming out hardball? We're cutting your subsidies. We're going to actually have our IRS look into why you're paying those taxes.
They stopped listening to the working class a long time ago. The people they listen to are.
Oh no, I agree.
Saim, all these guys with the big checks. That's who they listen to. That's what they get for the check. They get listened to. That's the deal. The deal is not, oh, let's write this line. Someone else is going to write the line into the legislation, but you're going to listen to me talk about that line.
And you know what? It's also crazy because they have all these consultants who are just scamming them. But polls showed after that 1.9 trillion COVID relief, that was very popular. His approval rating was very high.
You know why Hispanics and African Americans are going to Trump? Because he put money in their pocket, literally.
Right.
Like, who was the last Democrat who put money in anybody's pocket like that?
I'm saying Biden and the 1.9 trillion was very popular. And then after sending them a $1,400 check, unemployment, some other things, then they went back. Then they're going back to austerity.
He did the same thing with Afghanistan. He got out of Afghanistan and he got a big bear hug from a lot of people over that. And what's he do? He starts standing with Ukraine and start talking about nuclear war. It's insane. It's completely insane. And I cannot find where have all the peaceniks gone? Can you tell me that? Didn't there used to be a lot of peaceniks like Mr. Marcos Mulitsas, the big king of the blogosphere in the aughts?
He's Hillary Clinton's
Mr.
wine party.
Peace, don't you ever get in my face about war. He's over there standing with Ukraine, draped in blue and yellow. Like
I don't have a problem.
Fascist Nazi. They don't even know who Stepan Bandera is. They don't know who Stepan Bandera is.
I don't have a problem giving humanitarian aid to the people of Ukraine. I have a big problem continuing to give weapons when the president of Ukraine months ago said we need the U.S. to help diplomatically. That was it was barely reported, but he told the AP, we need America to do more to bring this to an end diplomatically.
Did you notice Chomsky's comment about Donald Trump being the only person who's actually the only leader of any consequence who's actually proposed peace talks was Donald Trump.
Yeah, I
Like,
think
how
Trump,
the
I think
Democrats have
Trump's
left.
the,
The Democrats have left every single traditional Democratic issue on the table for Republicans to just come and take every single one. Every one.
well, I
Every-
wouldn't go.
and
Most
then-
of the
and then they
most
come
of the
back-
Republicans have voted for this money. There was one vote they didn't vote for. By the way, that was after Marjorie Taylor Greene cashed in on this war. She voted
Right.
against spending
Right.
$40 billion.
But
She got her.
Trump
Right.
could take. I think that's a fight. I think there's a war going on over this because Trump said, "Let's have peace talks," and he hasn't walked that back. And his son took a shot with JD Vance standing next to him at
Yeah.
Big War. He calls it Big War. like that's pretty
Right.
good. I thought that was a nice,
Well, what
if you're
people
gonna run
don't
on
realize,
Big War, that's pretty good.
what people don't realize, and I said this when I was at the Young Turks, it was never that Trump was working with Russia and colluding. It had nothing to do with that. Trump is deferential to Russia for the most part because it's his biggest real estate customer. Anybody in New York City knows that. His biggest moneymaker is Russian oligarchs. So that's why he was never, beating the drums and calling Putin, evil.
He's a Republican through and through, Democrat Republican through and through. Everyone forgets he was a Democrat before he walked down the
Right, but
goddamn escalator.
Trump armed Ukraine. Trump armed Ukraine when he was president. People forget that. He bombed,
His
bombed
hands are
Syria.
dirty. And the first ad that Tim Ryan ran in Ohio was standing with Ukraine ad with this like, oh, JD Vance, and he's basically campaigning for JD Vance in this ad because it opens with JD Vance saying to the camera, I really don't care what happens in Ukraine.
But what's amazing to me
is
is
him for not standing with Ukraine.
But who's advising these candidates to tell them, the people of Ohio, their top concern is Ukraine? I mean, it's crazy.
Well, you should ask Tim that because it used to be me. but
And by the way, if Tim Ryan is such a union guy and fan of the workers, why doesn't he do an ad standing with the Amazon workers? Because Amazon's trying to overturn a historic.
You know what? I think he came to that UAW strike in Parma in 2019. Remember that UAW strike?
Great.
When he was running for president. When he's running for president, he shows up.
Right. But if you want to stand with the workers, he could be doing that. Real quick.
What's our bet?
I don't think he's not going to lose by 20. I think Vance will win by 7 or 8. You want to say 20?
Yeah, I'm going to say 20.
Okay, so next time I'm in Cleveland, you'll take me to what's the place I like there? Actually, you pick the place.
You didn't like any place? You can't even remember one place in Cleveland?
No, I liked I went to the fuck is that whiskey place? It was like, downtown where all those restaurants are where the yuppies go.
Street.
Yeah. It was a whiskey.
Yeah. Everybody goes to East 4th Street. It's the most heavily subsidized 450 feet in the entire globe.
There would
be nothing there if it weren't for all these grifters putting together a gigantic nonprofit extravaganza to create East 4th Street into this sort of New York City studio sound
and corporate welfare for Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cavaliers.
Yeah, and Dan Gilbert. Don't get me started on Dan.
But
Gilbert.
Real quick, because I forgot, Dennis Kucinich was a congressman from Cleveland.
Yes. Dennis is the first candidate I ever worked for. I was an intern in college for Dennis Kucinich's 1988 primary against Mary Rose Okar. He lost 75-25.
Wow.
That's how I got started. Dennis ran for mayor last year. This is another, these guys are running into the Republicans' arms and wondering why nobody's following him. He runs for mayor, and there's briefly some buzz because if he comes back and becomes mayor again, that's big news. And everybody kind of thought, yeah, he's going to get through because it was a nonpartisan primary for top 2 go through to the general. So everybody's thinking, oh, Dennis can get through. It was a little bit complicated, but everyone's like, yeah. And polls came out showing him leading. What's his first policy priority? Can you guess? Take one guess. He's going to hire 400 new cops.
Oh,
That
God.
was the only policy promise he made. The entire mayoral campaign was 400 new cops.
Wow.
This is in a primary where on the same ballot is an issue called issue 24, which was to create a civilian review board for the city of Cleveland police.
Right.
Dennis didn't get into third place. He came in fourth.
Wow.
Issue 24 won with 64%. That is a guy who is out of touch, who has stopped hearing things. And one of the, and I still talk to Dennis every once in a while. I emailed him about this Ukraine shit. I said, listen, shouldn't you be on a plane with Jesse Jackson, you and Howard Dean going over there, you know, talking to the Pope, you picking up the Pope, and then you're going to Moscow. And then from Moscow, you're going to Kiev, and everything's going to be fixed, right? Isn't that what you guys do? Where's Ralph Nader? Where are all these people who lectured at us our entire adult lives about anti-war and peace, shoveling munitions into what potentially could be a nuclear confrontation? It's mind-blowing. I don't know where the left has gone. I mean, where have all the peaceniks gone? Tim Ryan was one of them, and that's why I think, you know, J.D. Vance could probably kick him on it over and over and over again, but I don't know. You're right. They're not, the Republicans really aren't interested in running on anti-war.
No.
Not at all.
No. Well, they're interesting in show votes. They will vote against certain things.
Rand Paul talks a good game every once in a while.
When it comes down to it, oh my God, would they die for war with Iran? Probably China too. So let's not get it twisted. That, I mean, it's one war. It's one party. It's a war party. That's the most stable special interest. Before I let you go, any other political trends you're seeing in Ohio or anywhere else?
Well, just this midterm's going to be absolute wipeout. And the race I'm looking at is the Cuyahoga County executive race between Chris Ronayne, the Democrat, and Lee Weingart, the Republican. Chris Ronayne never.
Don't bore my audience with Cuyahoga County. Is Biden gonna run again? I would bet that.
Boy, you want to? I don't know.
I say no.
I say he's an old senile man, and those people cannot be reasoned with. And when they make a decision, they are going to do what they're going to do. And I think he's going to run. And I think he's going to be a corpse at the top of that ticket.
All right.
What you might see is Kamala Harris start trying to get off the ticket,
or Kamala finding a way to push him downstairs to speed up the process.
Well, there's probably two ops there. There's the one to push him down the stairs, and then if that fails, get me the hell out of here. And there might be, that would be very interesting, because I do think he's going to run, because it's like telling him he can't go to the bathroom.
All right, audience, you heard it. 20 points, he says Vance is going to win by. That's not going to happen. So I look forward to winning that bet. And we'll talk again.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Hey, if any other audience members want to email me placing bets on things, if I lose, I'll have you on. I'm a man of my word. So glad we could talk with Tim. Didn't agree with him on everything, but he is a wise man, and appreciate him watching and supporting Status Coup. Before I go, let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Isaac Mika, $5. Keep doing what you do. I watch for your text every day and tell everyone who will listen about you. Why, thank you. Eleanor, $5. Biden, Harris do nothing for the people, not Medicare for all, can't erase student and medical debt, or legalize weed, all of which we could get Dems elected in November. Let me tell you something. To these fucking idiot political pundits who say, I don't think canceling student loan debt. What is the most reliable voter? That is older people. No disrespect to our old folks watching. What is a less reliable voting group? Young people, particularly in the midterms. Higher rates of youth turnout in the presidential elections, drops off during the midterms. I don't know. I was once a college student. I'm not that old. I'm only 35. If you canceled, I want all of it, but let's say he canceled $50,000 in student loan debt. Trust me, he'd get a lot of those young people out. It might not make the complete difference, but he'd get a lot of those young people out. If he actually did something bold, went after these fucking oil criminals, these fossil fuckers, he might get more people back. People want a fighter. Even if it's a bullshit artist like Trump, they want to support someone that looks like they're fighting. Tony Dallas, $5. Careful, Jordan. YouTube might demonetize you. The CIA did nothing wrong. Oswald was the lone gunman. Wink, wink. Yes. Wink, wink. The CIA did nothing wrong, and there was only one gunman. Wink, wink. Observer, you got to watch, by the way, Oliver Stone's recent documentary on this. I mean, I'm going to watch what I say because YouTube will kick us off, but watch Oliver Stone's recent documentary on JFK's assassination. I think it's called Revisited. It will blow your head. That's a bad phrase when talking about JFK. It will, I don't want to say blow your mind either, because they literally did blow his brain out. It will knock your socks off. It will knock your socks off if you watch Oliver Stone's documentary on JFK. Observer, $2. What about Kucinich? We just talked about Kucinich. Observer, $5. The vote was postponed. Stop the BS. Monday morning quarterbacking. What vote was postponed? What are you talking about? I don't know what vote was postponed. Thank you for the super chats. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. Remember to sign up as a Status Coup member. We're currently brainstorming ideas for our next reporting trip, but we need more support for our on-the-ground reporting and our investigative journalism. So that's statuscoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Statuscoup.com/join. $5 to $10 a month. It makes a big difference. And I will see you back here tomorrow, 5 o'clock Eastern time. Thank you for watching. And remember, the Status Coup store is wide open. Get your beachwear, your United Corporations of America shirt, a big seller, your Fossil Fuckers shirt, and other gear. You could also look under this video. There's plenty of options as you scroll for new gear you could buy in the Status Coup store. Have a good night, everyone.